Okay, so today I want to talk about something that comes up in my classes more than you might expect, and that is the question of whether I am an otaku. For anyone who is not familiar with the term, otaku is a Japanese word that is commonly used to describe someone who is deeply passionate about anime, manga, and Japanese pop culture in general. In Japan, the word originally carried a slightly negative meaning, kind of like calling someone a loner who is obsessed with one thing. But over time, especially outside of Japan, it became more of a badge of honor among fans. And then there is the word weebu, or weeb for short, which is a term mostly used in Western internet culture to describe someone who is so obsessed with Japan that they want to be Japanese, adopt Japanese mannerisms, and basically replace their own cultural identity with what they imagine Japanese life to be like. So now you have the context. And with that context in mind, let me tell you where I actually stand. Most of my Japanese students call me an otaku, and honestly, when I first started hearing that, I was not sure how to feel about it. When I began teaching Japanese students years ago, I had a general idea of what the word meant, but my understanding of it was mostly negative. My initial reaction was something like, "No, that is not me, please do not label me that way." And part of what bothered me was the assumption that sometimes came along with it. Some students, not all, but some, would hear that I enjoy anime and immediately assume that I must desperately want to live in Japan, move there permanently, immerse myself completely in Japanese society, and basically leave my own life behind. And I want to be clear about this, because I feel strongly about it. That has never been my goal. I live in the Philippines in the countryside, by choice. I am building my life here, on my own terms. Japan is not my dream destination or my dream identity. Appreciating a culture and wanting to become part of it are two completely different things, and I do not appreciate when those two get mixed together. That said, over time my understanding of what my students actually mean when they call me an otaku has shifted. When they say it now, they usually mean it as a compliment. They are acknowledging that I take anime seriously, that I know the stories deeply, that I follow voice actors and manga artists, that I check the source material, and that I genuinely engage with the content rather than just casually watching it. In that sense, yes, I accept the label. I do watch anime with real attention. When something interests me, I look up the manga it was based on. Sometimes I even try reading the light novel version if one exists. I follow official accounts of manga artists and voice actors on social media, even when I cannot fully understand the language yet. That level of engagement is something my students recognize, and when they call me otaku because of that, I take it as them saying, okay, this person actually gets it. And that feels different from being called a weebu by someone implying I am trying to be something I am not. Now let me talk about how I actually watch anime, because I think some people assume that being into anime means you have all the time in the world and nothing else going on. That is not my life. I work, I manage a channel, I take care of pets, I try to read books, I am learning Korean and Japanese, and I live alone, which means everything in my daily life depends entirely on me. So when I watch anime, I watch efficiently. If an episode does not grab me fully, I speed it up to 1.5 or even 2.0 times normal speed. At double speed, a 20-minute episode becomes about 10 minutes. That means I can get through 6 episodes in roughly an hour. For a standard 12-episode anime series, I can technically finish the whole thing in one sitting of 2 hours. That is how I keep up with my goal of watching 52 anime in a year, which works out to about 1 per week. Now, the tricky part is that not all anime are 12 episodes. Some of the ones I love most are hundreds of episodes long. So for longer series, I count every 12 episodes as one completed anime toward my goal. That way the system still makes sense, and I am not penalized for choosing longer, more complex stories. Right now I am rewatching some older series that I first watched years ago, because I want to be up to date with newer seasons and story arcs. One example is a classic long-running series with over 1,000 episodes that I have actually watched from the beginning multiple times. I know that sounds like a lot, but when you genuinely love a story, going back to the beginning feels less like repetition and more like visiting somewhere familiar. I am also reading along with the manga for some titles, though I had to take a break from one specific ongoing series because the story reached a point that genuinely made me emotional, and I needed a little distance before continuing. That is the thing about really good storytelling, in any format. It gets to you. My students tend to react in a few different ways when they find out how deep my anime knowledge goes. Some of them are genuinely delighted, especially those who are fans themselves. They immediately want to compare notes, recommend series, and talk about their favorite characters. But here is something I find amusing. When they realize I know a lot, some of them become almost competitive about it. They will bring up very obscure titles from the 80s or 90s, anime that are nearly impossible to find with subtitles today, just to test whether I have seen them. And when I have not, there is this subtle satisfaction on their end. I find it funny rather than annoying because I understand the impulse. If something is deeply meaningful to you, you want to meet other people who understand it at the same level. And when someone from outside your culture knows your cultural references that well, it creates a small but real moment of connection. There is a more complicated side to all of this, though, and I want to address it honestly. My genuine fascination with Japanese people is not the same as admiration for everything Japanese. Some things I do not agree with, and I think it is important to be able to say that even when you appreciate a culture. One thing that bothers me, based on many conversations with my younger Japanese students, is a certain disconnection from history. Germany, as a country, has put enormous effort into educating its people about the difficult parts of its past. The approach is to confront what happened, teach it clearly, and treat that history as a reminder of what must never be repeated. Based on my conversations, the relationship some younger Japanese people have with their country's wartime history feels different. Some students I have spoken with seemed unaware that Japan occupied the Philippines and other countries in Asia during the Second World War. Others knew but seemed indifferent, as though it had nothing to do with them personally. And I understand that people cannot be held individually responsible for things that happened before they were born. But there is a difference between personal guilt and collective awareness. Some of my students have actually apologized on behalf of that history, and I appreciated the sincerity of that. Others seemed completely detached from it. As a Filipino who belongs to a country that experienced that occupation directly, that detachment is something I notice. I am sharing this not to start an argument or make anyone feel accused of anything, but because I think it is worth being honest about the full picture of how I experience Japanese culture through my work. I find it fascinating. I also find it layered, and sometimes contradictory. The same culture that produces incredibly moving stories about loyalty, resilience, and human connection also has social dynamics that can be difficult to understand from the outside. And that complexity is part of what keeps me genuinely interested. I am not interested in a version of Japan that is just cute characters and beautiful architecture. I am interested in the real thing, which includes the parts that are uncomfortable to talk about. So, am I an otaku? In the way my students mean it, probably yes. In the way that implies I want to become Japanese or abandon my own identity to live inside an anime, absolutely not. I am a Filipino woman who loves stories, who finds deep meaning in good fiction, who respects Japanese culture while also being honest about its contradictions, and who is still very much at home in her own life, in her own country, building her own future. The anime is part of who I am. It is not all of who I am. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, subscribe to help me hit my 2,000 video goal. This is my unfiltered diary of solo living in the Philippines, from the tough days in the ESL classroom to my journey learning Japanese and Korean. Yes, I'm still a beginner. If you'd like to support my work and my retirement fund, check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update. Thanks for being part of the journey.
See you then.